Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to this evening's program. We give thanks and praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to come into your homes to bring you messages of hope, happiness, peace, love and well-being, and that we may remind you of the favours that Allah has bestowed upon you, and that you may be grateful for everything that you have in your life. As you know, this program is dedicated to exploring the spiritual and the symbolic language of the Quran. And the Quran that I use is the Allama Abdullah Yusuf Ali translation from Arabic to English. And if what I quote does not match up exactly with the version of the Quran that you have, it may be that you have got a different edition. And as you know, these talks will be about what it's like to be a spiritual person living in this physical world. And today I want to go back again and look at the cave of Hira and its importance in Islam. And just talk about the cave of Hira, because this is where everything started for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so I think it's so important just to have a bit of a catch-up. I did talk about it when I kind of switched my programs over during Ramadan. But, I want to kind of talk about it again because it was fascinating. And I think, you'll appreciate kind of going back in time to when Islam first kind of came into existence, when it was first, if you want to say, it was first born. And so, have you ever wondered about the transformative power of solitude? Because as you know, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would take himself off to the cave of Hira and meditate and pray, and it's through this solitude that he became more spiritually aware. So there is something quite special about the quiet moments in your life that allow you to reflect within. And as you reflect, this shapes your understanding of the world and the things around you. And this reshaping will leave an everlasting impact upon you. So as we delve into the sacred sanctuary known as the Cave of Hira, where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would go to seek sanctuary and seek solitude, this journey that he was on had a profound spiritual journey through which his consciousness would also learn to connect to the hereafter, or he would raise his consciousness and awaken to the life of the hereafter and the spiritual wisdom that is associated to meditation and spiritual awareness, and also seeking that solitude where he wouldn't be influenced by the goings on of the outside world. And this is why, one of the reasons, he would seclude himself away. And also it's about finding that peace and quiet so that you can truly connect and feel that oneness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I do want to kind of talk a little bit just about the history of when it all started all those years ago. Now, the Cave of Hira has a profound significance in Islamic history as the place where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would retreat for meditation and self-reflection. And this holy place is situated near Mecca, and the cave became the place where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would go and strengthen his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's just have a look at a little bit of information about the cave of Hira. Now, the cave of Hira is known as the Hill of Illumination, or the Mountain of Light, and it's Jabal al-Nur mountain, and it is one of the most significant aspects of Islam. And I'm sure that there's many people who even aren't Muslims, they will nowadays recognize, if you say the cave of Hira, do you know what it is? And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have now know what the cave of Hira is. And so that's how profound this place of spiritual recognition is. And so it was at the age of 40 years old that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is said to have been presented with his first revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Hazrat Jibreel, or Angel Gabriel. And it was said to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, O Messenger, O Muhammad, you are the messenger of God, I am Jibreel. And so the very first verse from the Quran is Surah 96. And then there's the first 5 verses of Surah 96, which is so significant because it's the first words or the first verse of the Quran, or the first few verses of the Quran that was repeated to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it goes like this. So it's Surah 96, verses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they are only small, short verses. And it says this: Proclaim, or read, in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, who created man out of a mere clot of congealed blood. Proclaim, and thy Lord is most bountiful. He who taught the use of the pen, taught men that which he knew not. And those were the first words that were the first section of the Quran. And then since then, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, began to teach people. And when he moved out of the cave and was halfway down the mountain, this is when he heard the voice in his ears saying, O Muhammad, you are the messenger of God, and I am Jibreel. And after encouragement from his wife and her cousin, he accepted the message from God and devoted himself to delivering the message of Islam. And so it's in the cave of Hira where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, engaged in deep contemplation, meditation and prayer. It was during one such moment of spiritual reflection that this is when the angel Gabriel, or Jibreel, appeared to him, conveying the first revelations of the Quran. And so you can see just from that how important the cave of Hira was. And this cave of Hira was where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would seclude himself away and pray and meditate and reflect on, I don't know, maybe life itself and whatever was going on in society at that time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. You are listening to Radio Mac, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford, and I'm your host Asif Sabah, and we're in the studio today talking about the Cave of Hira and going right back to the beginning when Islam first started all those years ago. And as you know, how it all started was, the Prophet Muhammad would go to the Cave of Hira and seclude himself away from everybody and pray and meditate and reflect over, maybe the society, life at the time. And it's through this seclusion and solitude and inner reflection that he became aware spiritually. And you have that ability within yourself as well. This is something I think we sometimes forget. It is a part of Islam to be, to sometimes take yourself away and just seclude yourself. Or as you know, this is a common thing in the last, say, 10 days of Ramadan. So, it's important not just to do it during Ramadan, but, now and again. There's nothing wrong with just being by yourself, just spending that quality time where you can truly reflect on the real important things, even in your own life. And even if it's just to work on yourself, try to figure out solutions to problems or situations that are taking place around you in your everyday life. So, this idea of seclusion, it's not just a matter of, or it's not just about meditation, but it gives you a time to reflect on what is truly important and how that inner reflection can benefit you in so many ways, because it does give you that opportunity to work on yourself and really get to know yourself on a personal level. And knowing yourself, it's not just a matter of knowing the things that you want in the material world. This isn't really getting to know yourself. A lot of the thoughts that we have or the understandings that we have, it's all based on what we believe about the material world that we live in and all the inventions. But there is a part of you that goes way beyond this physical reality. And it's like a part of you that is so amazing, so powerful, so magnificent and so beautiful. But what we do is we create this other part of ourselves out of our own darkness and base matter and negative emotions, and then we believe this is who we are. But what about that other side? That side of us that is filled with light, that side of us that is filled with love, that side of us that is filled with peace and purity and self-confidence and kindness and gratitude and compassion and piety and just generally filled with love and filled with happiness. And what happens is we get so entrenched, so involved in the physical reality that we cast aside all these other parts of ourselves, because we believe if we allow that side of ourselves to step forward, and if we kind of embrace that side of ourselves, we are weak and we are not as strong. And we think if we embrace that side, we're not going to be able to gather the things of the material world. But this other side of ourselves that we present to many people in our lives, this side made up of opinions and the feedback that we get from other people about who we think we are, well, that builds up so many different defense mechanisms. And then as we express ourselves in this physical reality, all we're expressing are these defense mechanisms and our needs and wants regarding the material world. But do we ever truly express loving kindness towards each other? Because that is who we truly are on a spiritual level. All the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are within us as little flames. And do we ever really allow that side of us to step forward and express itself through us? And that is our beautiful side. And this is something that the Quran teaches us. It teaches us how to build the best character. And as we embrace kindness, piety, gratitude, love, peace, purity, and all the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we allow those names to manifest within ourselves, we begin to express those attributes as we go through our life. And this is who we really are. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was the best example. He was the best example. But how many of us really embrace that side of ourselves to express that beauty, that love, that piety, that kindness, that divine expression? But instead, what we do is we create this other side of ourselves founded on the base matter that we are born into, our negative emotions or our harmful thoughts and the processes. We embrace that side of ourselves. So it's like we are really living in a shadow of the light rather than living the light itself. And it's only by embracing love and expressing love will we begin to ignite the light of our soul. And as we embrace everything we find within the expression of love, that ignites kindness within us, that ignites gratitude, love, trust, truth, piety, honesty, all the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more we practice, the more we allow that divine part of ourselves to manifest, it will become a part of us. Because there's like a bit of a saying that says, if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you don't, say, do kind acts of charity, it never becomes a part of you. It never manifests itself within you, because you yourself are the ones that hold it back. When you see a situation and you think, oh, let me give something to that situation to help it. If you never give, then it's like you hold back that divine expression within yourself. So it never grows. It stays as a little spark instead of growing into a great full flame of bright beauty. So this is why it's so important to not allow the darkness within us to step forward, not allow the things that hurt us, to step forward and let them manifest and grow within us, because that is what we will become if we allow those things to step forward. Just like if we allow love to step forward in our lives, then love is what will manifest within ourselves. If we allow the darkness to step forward, then that is what we will become, and that is what our character will become, and that is what we will express. And so this is why it's so important to really understand what love means to you and allow it to manifest in your life, because this is how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would live his life. And this is one of the reasons why he secluded himself, to reflect on himself so that he could, learn how to understand. And he will have been asking so many questions about life and whatever was going on within that society at that time. And so as you learn to, or as you take yourself off and you begin to practice solitude and reflect upon your own self, these special quiet moments will allow you to reflect and will allow you to look at who you are becoming. And so this is why it's so important. And solitude should be playing a part in your life. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. Yes, you're listening to Radio Mac, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford, and I'm your host Asif Sabah in the studio. And today we're talking about the Cave of Hira again, because the Cave of Hira is so significant in Islamic history as the place really where Islam was born or came in to existence through the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so the Cave of Hira, it holds such a profound significance in Islamic history throughout the world, as the place where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would retreat for meditation and reflection. And this place, this holy place, is situated near Mecca, and the Cave of Hira became the place where the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would seek out solitude, and through this solitude and meditation and prayer, it would strengthen his connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you begin to trace the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's path to seclusion and meditation, you begin to understand the real journey that we must all one day make. And it is a journey where, instead of focusing on the external world, we begin to withdraw ourselves from the external and reflect within our own selves. And it's through this inner reflection that we begin to ask different questions. We begin to ask those questions that aren't all based on what everybody else in the world is doing or what is happening in the world, but it's based on our own inner journey. And that can even relate to how we are processing information ourselves, how we are understanding the world, how we are learning to think for ourselves instead of just believing the same things as everybody else. We take that next step to look at who we are becoming, and we pay close attention to this character or this person we are becoming. And we don't just accept or do things for the sake of following the general flow of what everybody else is doing. We become independent, like independent thinkers. And just because somebody else is doing something, it doesn't mean that we have to do that also. So we start to withdraw ourselves away from the general flow of what everybody else is doing, because we recognize that the real part of ourselves, well, to understand that part of ourselves, we have to reflect within ourselves instead of looking outwardly for answers to our inner questions. And this is what happens when as you get older, as you start to go through life, you do start to ask different questions. You do start to look at who you are becoming, rather than just going along with what everybody else is doing just for the sake of doing something or going along. You stand independent, and that is, again, you're becoming more reflective of who you are and your place in life. And so this is why it's so important to sometimes give yourself that time to be in solitude, even if it's just for half an hour or an hour, even if it's just going for a walk where you can ponder on whatever is going on in your life. So there are so many benefits to solitude and how it can help you on your journey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. You're listening to Radio Back, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford, and I'm your host Asif Sabah, and today we are talking about the Cave of Hira. And it's the beginning stages of how Islam first started, and we're talking about the Prophet Muhammad and how seclusion plays a part in your spiritual well-being. And the journey through life can be filled with so many different things that are going on, and so by secluding yourself away, this is like in a similar situation where the Prophet Muhammad, he would seclude himself in the cave of Hira, take himself away so that he wouldn't be distracted, so that he could focus on what was really important in his life. And this is what we also need to learn to do as a part of our own spiritual welfare, our spiritual cleansing, purifying, and looking at who we really are. And we can do this by taking that time out of our lives just to reflect, just to think about the things that are truly important, even think about life itself. And a part of understanding ourselves, not just ourselves from a materialistic point of view, but ourselves from a spiritual point of view, ourselves from that place that goes beyond the material world, because we all have this light and we all have a certain kind of darkness within us. And if we do not learn to turn our attention and bring out the light within ourselves through doing acts like charity, caring for the elderly, caring for somebody else, acts of kindness, acts of piety, acts of just being a generally good person. If we don't work on bringing that part of ourselves out, it will just lie dormant and it will never develop within ourselves. And so by taking yourself off and practicing a little bit of solitude, you get that opportunity to look at who you really are. Not the person who you believe yourself to be based on the material world, but you have to go beyond that person and look at the reasons why you may be having the reasons why you have certain needs in your life. And if those needs are causing you to swerve, maybe look at how you can deal with those needs so they don't have such a big impact on whatever is going on in your life. And you can learn to withdraw some of that impact so that you don't have to go out there and commit certain acts because certain ideas are having this big impact on you. And so by learning to withdraw yourself from some of the harmful negative emotions that may be arising, as you learn to go beyond those thought processes and bring into your life other ideas like piety, peace, love, trust, truth, all these things, you can replace the old you with some of these amazing expressions of love. And that will help to calm down the harmful thoughts that manifest and try to push their way to the front of your life and dominate you. So this is what solitude gives you the opportunity to do. And this is again why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would seclude himself away in the cave of Hira, away from everyone, in seclusion, to find answers to his inner questions. And it's then when the angel Jibril came to him and Islam came into existence in those first 5 verses that are in the Quran. And so this is why we need to look at who we are becoming, so that then we can start to maybe shift our focus of attention away from the darkness of our soul and towards the light of our soul, so that we can grow in awareness, in understanding, and just in general, because then that will play its part in how you deal with everybody in your circle of friends. And then as that way of your expression grows, it affects those around you. And the more love you can express in your everyday life, the nicer life will become. And there's so much more. If you want excitement, be excited for the truth. Be excited for so many other things other than that which flows from the darkness of the soul. And so learn to look at who you are. Learn to see yourself for who you truly are, not this false person that you present to others, trying to be tough or trying to be this person or that person, but be who you truly are. And the only way you will ever find who you truly are is by going beyond the everyday thoughts that manifest in your mind based on, and it's usually based on this, on the opinions you get from other people about yourself. This is how we grow up. We grow up and we base ourselves on what we think other people think about us. But how do you know those other people are even thinking that? Usually it's something we've created within our own selves. And really, those other people may not even be thinking what we think they're thinking. And so this is what solitude can do for you. It can allow you to not focus on what we think somebody else is thinking, but we can be ourselves. We don't have to conform to what everybody else is expecting us to conform to. We can just be ourselves. It's just like taking off a wet overcoat and just casting it aside, and you feel nice and warm because that overcoat was heavy. So learn to be yourself, but be a loving expression of yourself. And so as you create that space and enter into that solitude, this is the way of the prophets. They would find those moments where they could be by themselves, to be who they needed to be, so that they could move on in life, and they don't just become a reflection of everybody else's idea. And so before receiving the revelations of the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he will have been challenged by the ills that were dominant in Mecca at that time. And this is why he would often retreat to the cave of Hira to seek answers and to find peace by spending days in deep contemplation. And so the insights from this contemplation will also bring out experiences. And the solitude of the cave of Hira provided the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the best environment to reflect on such questions about maybe nature, or even the existence of life, the purpose of life, and the divine presence of there being one God. So his spiritual journey will have been like an awakening, and it will have inspired him to question and ask questions about what is going on in society, like we all do. I'm sure yourself, you've come to a point in your life where you've said, what is going on in life? Look at the way it's going. We all, I bet there's hardly a day that passes that you don't say, what is going on in life? Why is all this happening in life? Why are people acting and becoming like this? What is creating all this? And even back in time, these are most probably similar questions that people asked even back then. They wanted to know what is going on in life. And it's during one of these retreats that the angel Gabriel appeared to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and delivered those first verses of the Quran and initiated the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, message. And this is when Islam all started. So some of the questions that like I'm sure you've even asked yourself is, how did I arrive on earth? And the biggest question of all, what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? What is my purpose? We all ask those questions. Yet, do we ever really reflect within ourselves to get to know the answer. No, because we're usually so busy in the world trying to make a living, trying to scratch out a living in this world. We may ask the questions, but we don't go to that place within ourselves where we can find the answers. That is the thing. So when you start to look at solitude and how solitude can help you on your journey, and then take it another step forward or further and say, okay, solitude is going to give me a time to reflect. So why don't I close my eyes and push myself beyond the everyday thoughts and seek out the inner answer? Because all the answers that come to you come into your brain. But if your brain is so busy racing and looking at everything externally, instead of looking at who you are becoming internally, then you'll never really truly reflecting within yourself to find answers to your inner questions. But if you never turn yourself within, if you never ask those questions, or if you never reflect within yourself, how are you going to find the answers? If you never truly look. So the experience that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had in the cave of Hira should also be teaching you and the world about the importance of solitude in your life. This inner reflection and mindfulness as a way of giving yourself the space to feel the spiritual connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So amidst the chaotic routines that dominate our life, it is important to take time out to reflect on what you actually truly believe and the actions which can lead to personal growth and those profound insights to your questions. Because what you accept as the truth becomes your belief system. But what happens if there is some information that goes, you draw your information. Now, the thoughts you have in your mind, they are not all self-created. Don't forget, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's angels are closer to you than your jugular vein. They suggest through inspiration, and I've talked about inspiration before. Inspiration comes from an external force into you. It's not all your thoughts are not self-created by you. Just like you know you've got your darkness, you've got your light. Well, the angels are closer to you than your jugular vein, so some of the inspiration that comes into your mind comes from your angels. And then through your nafs, you receive other information from the darkness that tries to lead you astray. So that should be telling you that not all your thoughts that you have, you might think they are your thoughts, but they are not all from you. You receive inspiration from the heavens. And that inspiration comes from an external place. It comes from an external place. It doesn't come from yourself. You believe it comes from yourself because all the thoughts are in your mind. And all your thoughts most probably sound the same. But don't forget, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us something special. Very special. In fact, He's given us a lot of favours. But two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us: free will and choice. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not interfere with our free will or our choices. I mean, look at the state of the world around us. You know, you might say to yourself, why doesn't Allah step in and help out or do this or do that? But you know, in the Quran it tells you that, you know, Allah is not going to change the condition of a soul until we change it ourselves. And that is a verse from the Quran. So we have to do the changes. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to step in and make the changes, then He's breaking His own laws that He set up Himself. Think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you inspiration, but then it's for you, through your free will choices, to make that choice. Because then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us free will as a favour. And now it's up to us. That's why that verse in the Quran says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to change the condition of a people until they change it themselves with their own soul. In other words, until we change, Allah is not going to change the situation for us, because He's breaking His own laws, because He's given us free will and the ability to choose. Now it's up to us to use, and look at all the other favours. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the intelligence to make a choice. If we choose not to make that choice, that's up to us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us inspiration. He sends us inspiration that doesn't interfere with our free will choice. Because you'll read in the Quran that the angels will only suggest something to us. They will not tell us we must do this. They will only suggest. And then again, it's up to us to make that final choice. And we make a choice through our free will. That is how it progresses. And if we choose not to do something, just like you have the choice, and you know you have the choice, and you know you have the free will, but some people, they are bullies in life. They bully people. And so they end up bullying people into making certain decisions to satisfy their own belief system, even if that belief system goes against everything. And there's a lot of verbal bullying that takes place in life, and it shouldn't. We should do all things with love. And it's when we don't do things with love and everything that's contained within the expression of love, this is when we lose our way. This is when we go off the rails and start acting all melancholy. So this is why it's so important to express love, to seek out those moments of solitude, to reflect within our own minds, and to understand and use our intelligence to make good decisions, to make the best decisions for the benefit of all of humanity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. And my name is Asif Sabah, and I'm here in Radio Mac, and we're doing a talk on the cave of Hira and the importance of solitude and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the beginning stages of when Islam first came into existence all those years ago, and how solitude and secluding yourself away can be of benefit to yourself, so that you can be who you want to be, rather than be something according to somebody else's opinions or belief systems. And so it is important to reflect within yourself, and what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his experience of the cave of Hira is something we should also be taking into account as a part of our own personal growth and development. And if we want to emulate the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then we too should also learn to seek out moments in our life where we too can seclude ourselves away from everybody and just take time out of life in general, just to give ourselves that opportunity and that time to reflect. Because it's like everything else. If we don't try something, if we don't do something, we don't know what exists within that expression that we decide to express within ourselves. It's just like, if we never love, if we never fall in love, if we never experience love, then how are we going to understand it? How are we going to be able to identify with what love is? If we never practice kindness, how are we going to know what kindness feels like to ourselves? If we never try to be pious, we're not going to know what piety does to us. If we never meditate and reflect within ourselves, we don't know the benefits of meditation, because we've never done it for ourselves. So, and it's like everything. If we don't seclude ourselves away from everybody and just reflect, how are we going to know its results? So it's just like everything else we do in life. Until we do it, we don't really have a clue about what is going on. And it's only when you meditate that you get to understand the benefits of meditation. It's only through secluding yourself that you get to know the benefits of seclusion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. My name is Asif Sabah, and I'm here at Radio Max Studio, and today we've been talking about the cave of Hira, just as a reminder about the importance of the cave of Hira. And it does symbolize something that's very special, and it symbolizes the importance of solitude, inner reflection and mindfulness as a way of giving yourself the space to feel the spiritual connection that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And amidst the chaotic routines and the busy life that we all have, it is important to take time out to reflect on what it is that you truly believe in, and also the way your actions are impacting on this world and on other people. And that is just as important. And how you are in your life will depend on which direction you go in your life. And it all leads to your own personal growth and development. That is the ultimate goal. Now, which side of yourself do you allow to grow and develop? Do you allow the light of your soul and all that is good to grow and develop? Or do you only express anger and hatred and all the dark negative side of yourself? And then that becomes the dominant expression within yourself, which takes you away from Islam and the real truth behind everything that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stood for. And so the cave of Hira, it is used, or it can be used as a symbol to find your own place where you can incorporate the principles of meditation and contemplation into your daily life. And then from the prayers to mindfulness practices to sitting in silence to finding quiet moments in your life, this will all help you to connect to your inner self, that true nature of your inner self as a spiritual being, as a spiritual person living in this physical reality. And then it's through that inner connection you have with yourself that you then divinely connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why learning to find and set up that place of peace and solitude that you can create that in, if you've got a spare room or if you've got somewhere special, but you can sit and just be quiet for a little while. And you can make that place your place of peace and solitude. Just like if a child does something naughty, and so you say, right, go sit on the naughty step. That step becomes the child's naughty step, where it's allowed to reflect and think about what it has done. And you should also create your own space where you can go and sit in solitude and reflect upon what you've done. And reflect on how your life is going. So this is so important. And so as you practice prayer, as you practice meditation or sitting in silence, that will benefit your soul. And it's through your inner self, as you awaken that part of you that's great, that spiritual part of you, and you make that connection, you will begin to awaken and establish an awareness that connects you divinely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter. So by following the example set by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the cave of Hira, you can cultivate a deeper sense of purpose, compassion, forgiveness and kindness in your life. You can begin your own spiritual journey of self-discovery and self-enlightenment. And by understanding the significance of this sacred space that you have created and using the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as an example, you will find your own self within yourself. So by understanding the significance of this sacred space and emulating the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, his example, you can embark on your own journey of self-discovery, that leads to self-awareness and self-understanding. Now, you may think you don't know yourself. However, there is so much, you are so much more than the thoughts that tie you to the life of this world. And to really understand yourself, you do need to reflect within yourself. Get to know yourself all over again on a personal level. But not the side of you that expresses negative emotions, not the side of you that creates harmful thoughts to you. These harmful thoughts, they hurt you more than they hurt the other person. Because you are affected by the thoughts that you think. They trap you inside. And before you know it, you experience things like depression and anxiety and unhappiness and sadness, instead of joy and happiness and kindness and love and trust. Your thoughts impact how you turn out to be. And they can impact you in such a way that you become lost to your true, real self that is filled with light and filled with love. And then all these other elements that manifest out of the darkness that you express, they teach you just corruption, that you corrupt your own soul. And if you corrupt your own soul, those corruptions will eventually manifest and become so deeply rooted into your character that everything around you becomes corrupted, because you cannot stop corrupting things, because you've made that corruption a part of your inner self. So it's your task to look at who you are, get to know yourself, get to find yourself through love, trust, and truth. And as you get to find yourself, as you get to know yourself, you will be so pleased, because you are striving in the right direction. You are focusing to make that inner connection towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by knowing and learning and understanding yourself. And as you grow, as you develop, this is when you will feel that conscious connection. Because don't forget, life is about consciously recognizing where you are connected to. Some people, they've reduced their awareness to such a point that they don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. But who's cut that connection off? It definitely wasn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah calls us all to Him. But we make that individual choice through our free will, and we cut Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala off ourselves. But it's for us then to retrace our footsteps and reconnect ourselves. And you can only do that through, I would say, the expression of love, allowing love to manifest within yourself. So those loving feelings come back into yourself. And that will help you to create and establish that divine connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So recognize the importance of how solitude, just like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would seclude himself away in the cave of Hira. Create your own little space of solitude where you can go and spend even just a little while reflecting and asking those questions. But don't look externally for all the answers. Look within yourself. Find that peace. Find that quiet. Close your eyes and just be in the moment. And then you'll find that solitude, that peace, that quietness, that understanding. And then as you're in that special place, this is when inspiration will play its part in bringing you the answers to your inner questions. But you have to learn to go sometimes beyond the everyday thoughts that you have regarding life to find the answer. So I hope that's helped you a little bit. Jazakallah. My name's Asif Sabah. I'm here at Radio Mac, and I'll be leaving you in a few seconds' time. So I do thank you for listening to this program. I hope it's helped you and it's been beneficial to you. And may Allah bless you, and Eid Mubarak to everybody who celebrated Eid over Sunday and Monday.